Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg and I'm here today to do something that I have done before. It's the Honest BookTuber Tag. And part of the reason I decided to do this again is that I thought it would be a fun opportunity to talk about BookTube and being on BookTube and reflect on the experience, because when I did this tag the first time, it was 5 years ago when the tag was originally created by Harriet Rosie. I believe it was when the tag was originally created. Harriet Rosie is no longer on BookTube. And it's funny how the internet can be cyclical. So I did this tag 5 years ago when a lot of people were doing it, and I've seen a couple of people doing it again now. So it's just funny how things start to circulate again even years later. So I was only 6 months into having a channel when I originally did this tag, so I couldn't really properly answer some of the questions. So I thought it would be interesting to revisit now that I have some of the experience and can speak with authority, I guess. You know, I'm an experienced booktuber, I guess you could say. Am I? I don't know. More experienced than I was then. Let's go with that. So I thought it would be fun to revisit and reflect on the experience of having been on BookTube as long as I have, and see if the answers have changed or how layered things have become since I have been on BookTube for a while. Admittedly, there is also an element of this where I originally had planned a different video to film today. A video that would have involved this massive pile of books that you see next to me. And the thing is, it's been a pretty busy work week for me, and the day completely got away from me. So I know if I filmed that video, it's going to be pretty involved. It will probably involve a lot of editing, and I won't really be able to have it ready to post. So admittedly, there's an element of making things easy for myself here, not going to lie. But I have been thinking about how my answers would have changed all day, because I watched a couple, like 2 or 3 of the new versions of this that have been going around this morning, and was thinking about my own answers. So we'll get into this later, but I feel like one thing I always try to do, remember as I have my channel, is not to really weigh in on something unless I have something interesting to say. And because I kept thinking about it, I thought, well, it might be worth doing because clearly I have thoughts and opinions about it, so it'd be worth doing. So it's not just that it's easy, it's hopefully I actually have something to say. So I saw some versions of this earlier. As I said, it's been making the rounds again, and Lydia's Lost the Plot actually tagged me in her video of it, not to do the tag, but to mention me and my channel in it, which was very sweet of her, and she had some very nice things to say. I would recommend that you check out her video or her channel. I'll link her video down below because she's a new booktuber and I have been enjoying her channel, and if I've been enjoying it and if you enjoy me, maybe you will enjoy her work as well. So that's the thinking behind doing the tag again. Let's just kind of dive in and see how this goes. The first prompt is, have you ever lied about reading a book? And my answer now is the same as it was 5 years ago. I'll link my original tag video down below again. Don't judge me. Again, I had only been on BookTube for 6 years. 6 months. 6 months, not 6 years at the time. And anyway, I'll link it. No, I have not lied about having read a book. To be honest, I don't see the point in lying about whether or not you have read a book, because really at the end of the day, what do you stand to gain for lying? Maybe you'll feel a little important if you can feel part of the conversation. Like, I guess if you are trying to read the entire book or long list or something like that, and there's a book you don't get to, sure, maybe you'll lie. At the end of the day, what do you get out of that though? Nothing. Stature based on something flimsy. It's a house of cards, essentially, is what I'm saying. So I don't see the point. Additionally, I am the type of person who would get caught anytime he steps outside the line. So I feel like if I were to lie about a book, somebody would probably have follow-up questions about the book and I would just be discovered immediately. So I don't see the point for 2 reasons. One, because, you know, you could get caught theoretically, and I know I would, because anytime I do anything even moderately wrong, I get busted. But also, I just don't see the point of lying about it. Like, there are so many books that you could read. I feel like it would even be understandable. Like, if I haven't read something, everybody's got a life and things that they need to do, obligations they need to meet, relationships to enjoy and to foster. So if you haven't gotten around to reading a book, I feel like it's understandable. Why would you judge someone based on it? If someone wants to judge you based on whether or not you have read a book, that is their problem, not yours. So I just don't see the point in lying about whether or not you have read a book. That's me. Prompt number 2. Have you ever avoided a book because of controversy around the content or author? Absolutely, I have. I spoke a little bit in my original video about being a conscious consumer, someone who likes to vote with his wallet, and that is still true. And I feel like it applies to controversy around books and authors as well. Basically, the notion is I don't shop at companies that have practices that I don't agree with as much as possible. Because of the way the world works and the way capitalism works, it's almost impossible to be 100% good on this topic, and sometimes you just don't really know enough about the companies or the people that you might be supporting with your dollars. So you have to make the best decision on the information that you have. But like, I don't like shopping at Walmart. I don't go to Chick-fil-A. I don't do Amazon. None of that. I don't judge people who do. I know people who use Amazon, like Kindle Unlimited, because they have a limited budget for books, and Kindle Unlimited gives them access to things. I know people who are on a fixed income and shop at Walmart, so their dollar will go a little further. I understand. I think it's important to use the money that you do have in a conscious way, but it's up to you to negotiate how you spend your dollars and all of that stuff. I just personally don't go at those organizations or companies, and I don't support authors that I don't agree with. The big example, of course, is J.K. Rowling. I try not to talk about her on my channel very much, but I feel like the fact that she has been so insistently in the news makes it a little difficult not to talk about her, but she is sort of the prime example. After I did the original book tag video, I made a decision not to talk about her books anymore. And I did a whole video about that. And, some people were angry about that and talking about cancel culture. And the thing about it is, I'm not saying other people can't read J.K. Rowling's books. I'm not saying they should be removed from bookstores or libraries. I'm not saying you should burn them. If you want to read her books, that's fine. I don't want to give her any of my money. I don't want to give her any oxygen. She takes up too much of that as it is, and I feel like it inevitably gives her a platform, and she ends up using that platform to actively harm transgender people. And I do think it's important, though, if you are still someone who reads J.K. Rowling, I feel like you should be able to acknowledge the harm that she does, or it's important to acknowledge the harm that she does, because if you grew up with Harry Potter and you don't want to lose it or let it go, I understand. But you should be able to acknowledge the author has done terrible things. And it's the same principle with Gone with the Wind. If you grew up with Gone with the Wind and you want to continue loving it, that's fine. I understand. But it's important to note that the book and the movie promote racist ideology. And we don't have to get into that here too. I'll link my video about Gone with the Wind down below if you really want to get into it. But I think it's important to vote with your wallet. And that goes for things that you support as well. It's not just trying to remove money from things you disagree with, but spending money on things that you would like to see more of. And I think that for that reason, it's important if there's a book or an author that you were really interested in, maybe if you have the means, buy a copy of the book. Get it from your library, do something that will help support the book and author, and tell the publisher, this is a type of story that I would like to see in the world. I do this a fair amount with queer authors and queer books that come out. I admit, when I hauled Housemates by Emma Copley Eisenberg recently, part of the reason was that, this is a great queer story. I would like to see more things like this out in the world. I'm okay spending money to tell the publisher, this is something I want to see more of. So it's not just removing your support from, the way I think about it at least, it's not just about removing support from things that you don't want to give a platform to, but it's also about giving support to things that you would like to see more of, if that makes any sense. And there are other authors that I actively chose not to talk about. And we don't have to spend a lot of time on those, but I'll name two of them. Why not? I'm kind of trying to do this as off the cuff and spontaneously as possible, so I haven't really decided what I'm going to talk about or not. And we'll see how that goes. But like Bret Easton Ellis is another good example. In the early days of Twitter, when I actually had an account, before it really revealed what a hellscape it was going to turn into, Bret Easton Ellis, I feel like, was one of the first people to use that as a platform to get attention for saying truly awful and despicable things. And I decided at that point, you know what? This is not someone I want to support. So I have never read one of Bret Easton Ellis's books. And I did get some questions last year because I think it was The Shards was a book that was well reviewed. And people asked me, are you planning to read it? And the answer was no. I have made an active decision not to support Bret Easton Ellis a long time ago, and not enough has changed to make me revisit that decision or reconsider. Another person is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, which is something that surprises people because not everyone knows about the controversy with Adichie. Basically, she has promoted some transphobic notions similar to J.K. Rowling. They're like rooted in the idea of feminism, but they are harmful to the transgender community. And she has denied being transphobic. She posted something on her website in 2021 that I thought was kind of despicable and awful. It started a fight between her. The fight had been ongoing between her and Akwaeke Emeze, who had been a mentee of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And in it, she pretty deliberately, I think, misgendered Akwaeke Emeze, which, of course, if you claim not to be transphobic, but you misgender someone, doesn't necessarily look good. So I don't give Adichie a platform on my channel. She's been quiet on the topic since 2021, which I think is why a lot of people don't necessarily know about the controversy there. J.K. Rowling thing is, she just won't stop talking about it. So if Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie were to come out and, explain, and it turned out that she wasn't actually promoting transphobic notions, although it really seems that she is, I would probably reconsider. But that hasn't happened. So that's probably it on that topic. Prompt number 3. Have you ever been sent a book for free and not disclosed it? I do not believe so. I feel like it is extremely important to be upfront if you receive something from a publisher or from an author, or with the promise of a review or inclusion in a book haul, what have you. I think it's important because I think if you have a channel, you have a contract with anybody who watches it to be honest about your opinion and all of that stuff. And that kind of goes back before I had a channel. I had been part of a program with Amazon back when I used to be willing to write reviews on Amazon, even though I didn't really shop there. They would send review copies. And one thing, they had like a forum, it was a whole thing, and people would comment in there and they would talk about how, because they didn't want to lose the opportunity to keep getting free stuff, they didn't want to say bad things about the free stuff that they got, even if they absolutely hated the book. And I don't agree with that. I think that's also why it's important to let people know when you get free stuff. I try to make sure I disclose it, whether it's in a book haul, if it's in a Friday Reads where I have read a book, and that will hopefully let you know that you are getting my honest opinion about a book, whether it's positive, negative, mixed, or whatever. I want you to be able to trust that you are getting the real. And I think that's really important with a channel. And one thing that I noticed is a couple of channels early on, after I discovered that BookTube was a thing that even existed, who weren't properly disclosing that. And it's something that bothers me. I think it's important to be upfront when you get something for free, because I think it's a contract with people who watch your channel. So I try to live up to that. If I have ever slipped up, I think it would probably be like maybe if I talk about a book in one Friday Reads and then revisit, like I actually finished the book the following week, maybe I forget to mention in the second Friday Reads, but I try to make sure I mention it anytime I mention the book. Occasionally I will get comments from people who are like, you don't have to repeat. Like if you're somebody who watches every video, you might hear the same story, like Temple Folk by Ali Bilal. the author actually sent me that book. So anytime I talk about it, I try to mention she sent it to me. She asked me if she could send me a copy in exchange for an honest review. So I try to mention it every time. And occasionally people will comment and say, like, you don't have to mention it every single time. But one thing I have really learned from being on BookTube as long as I have is that if you don't repeat things, people might miss the message. So if I mention it in one video, somebody might have missed that video completely. So it's important to mention it the next time so that the message gets across. And that's why even in long list reactions, I always mention to people like, hey, listen, some people get confused about this. These are not reviews. And the reason I mention that every single time is that I have learned if you don't mention it every single time, you're going to miss the people who might need that message. Anyway, let's move on to the next prompt, which is, have you ever bought a book with no intention of reading it? The answer is yes, absolutely I have. And I remember when I worked at Borders in my early 20s and, didn't have a family, was, making not a whole lot of money, but I was, single and young and all of that stuff. I know there were a couple of times I saw a book come into the store and thought, this is really pretty. So I bought it just because it seemed like a pretty book and I didn't necessarily intend to read it. So that is a thing that happened. And I have gone on vacation and purchased books to bring home with me. I know I went to Switzerland in 2005, I think. And I brought European editions of books home with me that I had already read. So I purchased books that I didn't intend to actually read. When I went to Italy, I got Italian versions of some books. I have purchased special editions of books. I have purchased hardcovers of a book. Like I had a paperback copy of The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. My local used bookstore one day had this first edition hardcover. I wasn't going to pass that up. Was I going to read that edition of the book? No. I think anyone who really loves books has probably done something like that, like purchased a special edition of a book or a hardcover of a book that they really love. And there are times when I have listened to a book on audio and loved it so much that I wanted a copy in my library. And for that reason, I didn't intend to read it again necessarily, but I did purchase the book. I think from watching my original version of this tag, that the original intent was, have you ever bought a book to include in your book haul without actually intending to read it? And to me, that is like a ludicrous concept. I don't even understand why you would do that. I guess if everybody was talking about a particular book and you wanted to be part of the conversation, but again, that goes back to my notion of what do you get in inserting yourself into a conversation that you don't actually intend to follow through on? Like, what's the point? Like, if everybody is talking about a book right now and I don't want to read it, why would I get myself a copy of the book just to pretend? What's the purpose of pretending? Maybe that's something I'm learning as I get older, because perhaps in my early 20s, I would have been swayed by something like that. But at the point where I'm at now in life, I don't feel like I need to prove anything to anyone. I will link a video I did about 15 books I'll probably never read in the description box down below, because I think talking about whether or not you've ever lied about reading a book, or just this, and whether or not you have purchased a book without intention of reading it, I feel like if you aren't going to read a book, that's fine. And I made a whole video, again, which will be linked down below, about books I'll probably never get around to reading. Maybe I will. But there are so many books in the world that it would be impossible to get to all of them. Everybody has to prioritize their time accordingly, decide what's important to them, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So anyway, prompt number 5. Have you ever got caught up in BookTube drama? So this is one of the questions that I couldn't really answer the first time around because I had only been on BookTube for 6 months at that point. And I'm in my 6th year on BookTube at this point. And I am happy to say I don't think I have been caught up in BookTube drama. And I said this in my original video. I feel like I had a dramatic enough childhood and adolescence. I'm not really about drama at this point in my life, and that has continued to be true. If there's drama, I don't really need to weigh in. And one thing I always will stop and ask myself before committing to whether or not I do a video, I hinted at this earlier, is, do I have anything to add to this conversation? Or do I have anything interesting to say? I think it's really important to make sure that if you are going to weigh in about something, Do you have anything interesting to say? Do you have anything to add? What is your connection to it in the first place? The Booker Prize ceremony last year, there was some drama about a booktuber involved in that, and we don't have to get into it. If you follow the Booker Prize, you probably remember what I'm talking about. A lot of people were talking about the drama with that particular booktuber, and in my reaction video to the Booker Prize, people were commenting on it and mentioning the drama around it to me, and it's just kind of like, well, I don't follow that booktuber. I don't really know anything about it. I have nothing to add to that conversation, and I don't feel like I want to educate myself enough to weigh in, because what would be the purpose of that? I have had disagreements with people. I think I've had some disagreements with people about audiobooks, because I am a defender of audiobooks. I know a lot of people like to pretend that audiobooks are not reading. It's something different. Some people say audiobooks are reading, but it's important that there's a distinction. And I feel like if audiobooks are reading, why do you need to elaborate on the distinction? Like, there are people who read audiobooks for a lot of different reasons, and the more people try to create a notion that it is separate but equal to reading, or separate and unequal to reading, the more there will be a stigma around reading audiobooks. So I've gotten into debates with people about that. A couple of years ago, I got into a debate with someone with a BookTube channel because they had done a tag video, and they said some things in their video that I really strongly disagreed with about the pricing of books. And in my tag video, I disagreed, and they came into the comments, and we had a debate about it. So that has happened. I don't think I've gotten into drama. I don't think I haven't had feuds with anybody, that's for sure. And I'm glad of that. For the most part, I try to avoid drama as a rule, but there have been debates, there have been disagreements, and that's sort of the way of the world. When you put yourself out there and have conversations with people, you are going to disagree with people. And I hope I have navigated disagreements well. I don't know, but I think I feel pretty safe saying I have avoided drama, and I'm very okay with that. Prompt number 6. Have you ever had a hate comment, and did you respond? So when I did this video 5 years ago, I had not had a hateful comment. I have had many at this point, and I have responded to some, not to others. I've tried to, especially as time has gone on, and I have tried to be a little cognizant of not getting into arguments with people who, like, if someone comments being hateful on the fact that I am a gay man, not worth my time getting involved in that. I had a rash of comments about Leviticus during Pride Month when I was reading queer books and queer authors and all of that. And there's no point getting involved in an argument with those people, so they just got blocked from the channel. YouTube does a weird thing. You don't block someone, you hide their comments. So I guess they can still watch your video, I guess. And I guess they can theoretically leave comments, but they just won't be posted. So I would never see them. I think that's how it works. It's an interesting idea. It's not like being blocked on other sites where it's almost like your profile doesn't exist. It's just that their comments are hidden. So I have done that in those instances. The times I have responded lately are usually because the person who leaves a hateful or angry comment is someone who has commented before. Like, I've actually had some instances recently where someone who has followed the channel for a long time has gotten upset about something and left angry, upset comments, and I've responded because I'm familiar with them. So most of the time now, I try not to engage with things like that. Occasionally, people will leave a comment that it is a little open-ended, and sometimes I admit I can't really resist taking the bait. Like, I had someone a couple of months ago leave a comment saying, "You should be kept away from children." It's like, oh, why should I be kept away from children? And they're like, isn't it obvious? I'm like, well, no, it's not obvious, actually. Why do you think I should be kept away from children? And a lot of the time when you call people out on something like that, they start dancing around because they don't actually want to say why. And that's interesting. It's hard too, because I have had 2 or 3 instances where having a conversation with someone who left a hateful comment or an angry comment or what have you has resulted in an interesting conversation. And I've had the people who left the hateful comment actually say, you know what, you've made an interesting point. I have a lot to think about. And for that reason, it's a little hard not to weigh into it sometime or dive into it, I guess would be it. So most of the time these days, for my own stress and anxiety level, I try not to respond to them, but sometimes it's difficult not to. And it's difficult not to take things personally anyway. They come in waves. It's interesting. And like I said, a lot of them will just center around the fact that I am a gay man in public, talking in a public forum. And that seems to attract a lot of hate. And I knew that it would, even 5 years ago when I did this video. I knew at some point people would have a problem with that. So, and there are a lot of people who will leave hateful comments on, most of the time I just shut off the comment section. Like I had to shut off the comment on that J.K. Rowling video where I announced that I was going to stop supporting her books and talking about her on my channel. I turned off the comments on one of my Nobel reactions, the one where Peter Hanke had won the Nobel Prize, because there was interesting discussion about his win in the beginning. And then over time, the people who were finding that video and commenting were people who were deliberately looking for videos that talked about him because they wanted to troll the people who were saying bad things or negative things about him. And it just made it more important to just close off the comment section than to continue getting comments like that. And the same of my Gone with the Wind video. There was really interesting, substantive conversation in the beginning when that video was first posted, but then over time, the people who were coming to that video and wanting to comment were people who wanted to accuse me of wanting to burn books. Like, again, I'm not saying Gone with the Wind shouldn't exist, but I do think we need to reckon with the ideology that it promotes. So I have tried not to respond. If somebody leaves something really offensive, they just get blocked. And if there's a video that attracts a lot of that, I just shut down the comment section. And that is wisdom that I got from Sean Breathe's books, actually, because a lot of the time when I would be getting a lot of these comments, I would get stressed and I would chat with him. And his solution was just, why do people give people an avenue to leave you these hateful comments? Just shut them down. So thank you to Sean Breathe's books for that. Prompt number 7. Have you ever made a video just because you knew it would get views? I mean, the nature of having a BookTube channel, the nature of creating videos is that you hope people will watch them. So in that sense, every single video I post is because I hope it will get views. You don't actually know anything. That's something that I have learned in, with the benefit of having been on BookTube for a couple of years. There are not all guarantees. Like I see a lot of the time people will say, oh, I'm going to do book haul videos and booker videos when I have my channel because those are the things people watch. Yeah, sometimes I feel like that's another situation where it starts to turn into, do you have anything to add to the conversation? Because a lot of people talk about the Booker Prize and things like that. So it can get very cluttered. So things that you think might be a slam dunk might not actually work. Recently, I thought the video that I did about books that should be adapted into movies, I thought that was something that people would get really excited about. It actually is below average in terms of views on my channel. So sometimes you think you have something people will be interested in, and they're not. I try to find a balance. I think because there's, again, a contract. I don't think I would have made it 5 years into having a BookTube channel if I were doing videos that I was not interested in. So I need to find ways to do videos that I'm interested in, but also do videos that people are interested in and will engage with. Because the reason I started a channel was that I wanted to have conversations with people about books. So you kind of need to be doing things that people will be interested in. I originally did a lot of standalone reviews on my channel, and I found that they just weren't getting any interest. And what's the point of shouting into the wind at a certain point? And I also found Friday Reads videos are easier for me because instead of doing standalone reviews, I can just talk about all of the books that I have read in a video where I catch up on them. So that's sort of where I leaned into Friday Reads videos. and recalibrated based on the way people consume videos. I try to not do something if it doesn't interest me or if I don't feel like there's anything interesting. And sometimes you know something will go well, and you're right. When the New York Times released its list of the 100 best books of the 21st century so far, I'll link my reaction video to that down below. I admit I kind of knew right away. I think people will be really interested in this, and I felt pretty sure about that because some of my most popular videos over the years have been reactions to the New York Times 100 Notable Books of the Year and the New York Times Top 10 Books of the Year. So I felt like I had a pretty good baseline that people will be interested in that. But at the same time, I did those videos about the New York Times Top 10 Books of the Year because it interested me. They just got a reaction from people. So I try to find a balance. I don't do something just because it's going to get views. I have to feel interested in it. I have to feel like I have something to say about it. And if people like it, then that's fine. You know, my Pulitzer videos, my Pulitzer Project, they vary. Sometimes they can be popular, sometimes they're not. But I find the project itself interesting overall. So if some of the videos don't get as much views as others, I still want to continue doing it. So I try to find a balance between what I find interesting and what other people find interesting as well. Prompt number 8. If you could go back to the beginning of your channel, would you do anything differently? And again, when I was only 6 months into having a channel, there's no way you could possibly answer that. So I feel like I have a better perspective on it now. And I don't actually think I would really do anything differently. I think my answer at the time was to think about the creation of videos, but even that, I feel like I wouldn't do anything differently because I needed to learn the best system for me that would also yield results. Like a lot of my really early videos are very blurry. The sound quality is not great. So I had to learn ways of doing, because I was trying to take shortcuts in the beginning. I was trying to think, well, this is going to be a really easy way to do it. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the best quality. So that was a learning curve for me. And I needed to go through that and, you know, find ways to do it. So I don't really think I would do anything differently. I think the only thing I would say to myself is something I've already kind of covered here, which is that if something is important, you need to make sure you mention it in every video. So when I do my long list reactions, it's important in each one to mention these are not reviews because I don't want people to get confused that they're reviews. And if I don't mention it, that's when I start getting comments from people who are like, how dare you review books you haven't read? When that's not the intention. So you have to mention it every time. And the real big example of this is that one of the most popular videos on my channel is about essential LGBTQ literature. And I actually don't like that it's one of my most popular videos because when I did it, I was new to BookTube, didn't really understand things. So I did that video and then I did a follow-up video. And I thought everything would be fine because in the follow-up video, I kind of explained when I talked about essential LGBTQ plus books, I'm coming from the perspective of a gay man who mostly has read books by other gay men about gay men. So that's a bias that I have and I'm working to do better. So I did a whole video about queer books that I wanted to read, sort of like a TBR, to follow up on that video. But at no point in that original video did I mention that perspective or that I had that bias and that I was working to overcome it. So over the years, I would get a lot of angry, upset, or confused comments from people who would say, you know, rightly, you really just read books about gay men, don't you? That's, you know. So again, I ended up shutting off the comment section on that video because there is a big misunderstanding about the intention of that video and the way I executed it. So if I could give myself any kind of a warning, it would just be upfront about your intentions and mention anything important in that video because there's no guarantee that you'll get another chance to explain it. So even when I made that video, I had the idea, it's like, okay, so I have a bias in this direction and there isn't really, this isn't a very diverse list. So I'll do another video that explains that and has some diverse books that I would like to read in the future. I should have said it in the video, if that makes sense. So that's what I would tell myself when I was starting out. Prompt number 9, are there any channels you wish you could be more like? At the time, 6 years ago, I mostly mentioned channels that I thought spoke eloquently about books. And one thing that's really difficult about having a channel is that when you edit your own videos, you learn all of the awful things that you do as a speaker. I say a lot. I pause a lot. And I swallow a lot. And my brain sometimes gets a little too far ahead of me, so I will start a sentence and then go in a different direction. It happens a lot. And that's probably why I was thinking like that at the time. Now, I have managed some of that a little bit, but I feel like I've made peace with the way I talk and the way other people talk, and I've accepted I'm probably never going to be the type of person who doesn't say or start talking and then change direction. It's just the way I talk. So I don't necessarily feel like I have to change that anymore. And because people still watch my videos, I don't feel like it's as much of a problem. And if I'm never going to be the most eloquent or like well-spoken, however you want to define eloquent or well-spoken, I stumble, I stammer, I change direction. It's me. I feel like you're always more aware of your own flaws than other people might be. So I've made peace with it. And for that reason, I don't think there are really any other channels that I would like to be more like. I think I have built a channel that I'm proud of and that I like and that I enjoy. So I like it as it is, which is going to give you a bit of a clue for my answer to prompt number 10, which is what's something you love about your channel. It's just that. I feel like I have built a channel that I am proud of. When I wanted to create a channel, I didn't want to do it if I couldn't be honest. I didn't want to do it if I couldn't be authentically myself, because I spent a lot of time in my early 20s. I was so insecure about myself that I felt like I was trying to present good versions of myself to other people. I really cared a lot about what other people would think about me, and to the point where I would inhibit myself. And the end result is that in all the years since that, I have tried to maintain an authentic presence. If I can't be myself, what's the point? So I didn't want to have a channel if I couldn't be honest and if I couldn't be authentically me. And I think I have pulled that off. And it has been really rewarding over the years to bring Joel in. And in the early years, I had Guinness and Jamie who would kind of join me on the channel at periodic at points. And now I have Teddy who joins me at points. And I'm really proud that I have been able to build that type of a channel. So basically, I think something I love about my channel is that I have built the kind of channel I wanted 5 years ago when I was just starting out. You know, I started because I wanted a community of people to talk about with books who were passionate about books and talk about what I'm interested in and get other recommendations. And I do feel that I have managed to build that. And you could take any other measure of success, you know, subscriber count or views or anything like that out of the equation. I feel like I have gotten out of my channel what I originally wanted to get, which is pretty astounding and nice. So I am very proud of that, and it is definitely something I love about this channel. I think I have managed to walk that line between doing things that I'm interested in and doing things that other people will be interested in. I've really found ways to combine the two. I originally thought maybe I don't want to do reactions to the booker because I don't like following it. I don't want to read the long list, and that's kind of what everybody does. But thinking about how long lists are tools for discovery, I've found ways of doing things that I find interesting, and people have followed along for the most part. And of course, there are things that people haven't watched, but I definitely think I have built the channel I originally wanted to have, which is great. So that is the Honest BookTuber Tag. That is reflections on my time on BookTube and honest thoughts about BookTube and the experience. It's been wonderful. I look forward to another 5 years, hopefully, fingers crossed, being on it and all of that stuff. If you have a channel and would like to answer these questions, consider yourself tagged. Go ahead and do it. But otherwise, I look forward to your thoughts in the comment section. And as always, I really appreciate your time. I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.